Next on Unsolved Mysteries, a woman and her boyfriend are gunned down by a cold-blooded killer. Police need your help to catch him. When their mother is murdered, two brothers believe they know exactly who killed her: their stepfather. A U.S. Army veteran of World War II is convinced that he can find a Nazi treasure worth more than $50 million. And 3 months after a teenage girl is stabbed to death, a man calls a hotline and says that he's the killer.
I stabbed the girl to death.
Sound intriguing? Well, stick around. These are unusual cases that you won't want to miss. I'm Dennis Farina, and this is Unsolved Mysteries. Walkies, Oklahoma. Tina Creamer and Robert Miller had been dating for just a few weeks. They met on the job at a local hospital where they both worked. On a summer evening, the couple planned to relax at Robert's apartment. While he cooked dinner, Tina was in the shower after a long day at work. They were not aware that they were being watched. "25-year-old Tina Creamer and 26-year-old Robert Miller never had a chance." Before meeting Robert, Tina had been married to a man named David Lee Kemp. He had begun stalking Tina shortly after they separated, and Kemp became the prime suspect in the double homicide. Tina's new boyfriend, Robert, was a refreshing change from her controlling ex-husband.
Rob was very affectionate, very loving. He brought a lot of love and laughter into her life. She had a lot of confidence. Her self-esteem had just exploded after she had left David.
She was a very beautiful woman. This lady was really, really good for him. Very supportive, made him happy. If this would have never happened, they would have been perfect for each other.
When Tina and Robert didn't show up for their shift at the hospital, co-workers called the police. In a cruel twist of fate, it was Robert's best friend, a police officer named Troy Morris, who responded to the scene.
I saw Rob's body lying there on the floor. I was too emotional to continue on, still wanting to preserve the crime scene for our detectives. I backed out of the residence and chose not to go any further. After exiting the residence, I did what police officers aren't supposed to do. I broke down. I can't describe that feeling. I can't describe it.
The repercussions of the double killing spread further. Tina's family learned what happened from a news report.
My husband and I, which is her brother, was watching TV. TV didn't say any names, but it showed the apartment. And we just knew that it was them.
As police began their investigation, they learned from Tina's friends that there was one likely suspect: David Lee Kemp.
The first thing that led investigators to seeking the whereabouts of David Kemp was the fact that he had motive. He had made threats to kill himself and to kill Christina when they split up.
Robert said on several occasions that David Kemp would come up to Comanche County Memorial Hospital and leave notes on Tina's car stating, if I can't have you, that nobody can.
She stated to me a few days before the murders that it was the calm before the storm. because of threats and letters. Rob knew that Tina feared David. And we would state to him, y'all be careful, watch out for him.
Detectives tried to locate Kemp but found that he had suddenly left town the day after the murders. Kemp was gone, and police had no physical evidence to link him to the killings. But the case broke wide open when they found a man who had sold Kemp a .45 caliber handgun.
This person still had in his possession some of the shell casings that he had fired previously through that gun. He provided the shell casings to us, and we submitted them for forensic examination. Those shell casings that were known to be fired through that gun matched identically to the shell casings that we found in the crime scene.
With conclusive proof that Kemp's gun was the murder weapon, police launched an all-out manhunt. It wasn't long before they got their first break.
We were notified by California Highway Patrol that they had spotted David Kemp's vehicle on a highway just outside of Bishop, California.
1 Chili 1, requesting wants on Oklahoma.
Kemp's Dodge Ram pickup truck had broken down.
The police indicated that there was no one around the vehicle. We faxed them a photograph of David Kemp and advised them of what he was wanted for.
Within an hour, a man fitting Kemp's description was spotted walking down the same highway.
They called us back and stated that they had tried to approach Mr. Kemp, but that he had fled on foot.
Police finally cornered Kemp in a junkyard.
David Lee Kemp, this is the police department. Step out so we can see you.
I'm not going to jail, no way!
Put the gun down, David.
He began to wave the gun about and indicated that he wanted to kill himself.
We're gonna try and help you, David. What can I do for you? Let us know, we gotta know.
Police fired rubber bullets and Kemp went down. The standoff was over.
When David Kemp was taken into custody in Bishop, California, he did have a .45 caliber pistol with him. Subsequent examination indicated that that was indeed the same gun that was used in the homicide.
Back in Oklahoma, Kemp was charged with the murders of Tina Creamer and Robert Miller. He waited for trial at the Comanche County Jail. But a few months later, 9 inmates, including Kemp, overpowered a guard and escaped. 8 of the fugitives were quickly recaptured. The 9th, David Lee Kemp, got away.
It was like hearing my brother getting murdered for the first time. I went to the jail, and I stood there and waited. I even went into the search parties. I wanted to make sure that I was going to do everything I could for Rob, to make sure this man, David Lee Kemp, was caught.
Personally, I don't know how David can live from one day to the next. He's a coward for what he's done.
3 months after the escape, the night manager of a Las Vegas motel checked in on a guest who was late with his rent.
Hello? Manager, sir? Hello?
The manager found the guest sitting in the bathtub covered with blood, holding a knife to his stomach. Assuming it was a suicide attempt, authorities took the man to a psychiatric ward for observation. His wounds were thought to be superficial. He was treated and released. The hospital staff had no idea that the man was wanted for a double murder. It was David Lee Kemp. Kemp was last seen at a service station on the outskirts of Las Vegas, Nevada, getting into a black Firebird.
It's just a never-ending nightmare. I want satisfaction from my brother, and that'll be the only way he can rest in peace. Without that, he's gonna be troubled, a troubled soul.
Our wounds have not even gotten to heal because David's never been tried, and our wounds won't heal till David faces the consequences of what he's done, till justice is served.
Update. There are new developments in this case. Here's one of our staff with details.
After 14 years on the run, David Lee Kemp turned himself in to authorities in southwest Arizona and was charged with first-degree felony murder. According to the sheriff, he told them he was tired of running and that the ordeal was affecting his health.
Next, two brothers desperately search for clues to their mother's murder. Buxton, Maryland. One summer afternoon, 19-year-old Nick Owsley arrived at his mother's house. They had planned to spend the evening together. The door was partly open, and she was nowhere to be found.
Mom? Hey, Mom, you home?
Her car was gone, and a set of keys was left on the kitchen table. Nick waited until 2 a.m., and then he went home for the night.
Mom, you all right?
When I woke up that morning, I was really concerned, called her house, and she didn't answer. And at that moment, I realized that something was really, really wrong. And I felt like, at that point, she was probably dead, because it was so unlike her and so out of character. And basically, I haven't felt anything different since that moment.
We had a memorial service, but we never had a funeral. And that kills me. The fact that she's out there somewhere, this wonderful, amazing woman who did so much for so many people, and we can't give her that final tribute and do what's right.
Susan Hurley grew up in Massachusetts and married one of her brother's college roommates. Two sons, John and Nick, were born 5 years apart. When the boys were teenagers, Susan left her husband and became involved with a man named Jim Harrison. After a few years together, they were married. From the start, the relationship was rocky. There were reports of heavy drinking and frequent fights. Jim Harrison attributes the problems to Susan's alleged manic depression.
She would start screaming and yelling, and she would start destroying things in or around the house. And she would run around the house and use bad language. It was really sad and really tough.
It's another excuse that he tries to use, tries to take the blame from himself for what, even now, even still, even when she's not around, to say, okay, maybe it was my fault.
Well, I think the first time that I recognized that there was abuse in the relationship was when I actually saw abuse myself when I was about 12 years old.
Nick claims that on the night he witnessed the abuse, he was home alone with his mother and Jim.
Get away from me!
Listen, don't tell me what to do.
I remember waking up around 2 in the morning and hearing voices and some screaming.
You're gonna wake up, Nick! Mom? Be quiet!
What's going on out there?
It's okay.
And she said, Jim's been hurting me, he won't leave me alone. And I said, well, I gotta get out of here. And so I called my brother's girlfriend at the time and talked with her, and she said, you should get out of there, I'll come pick you up, go outside, stand in the driveway, and then I'll come get you.
Nick says that while he waited, the battle moved outside.
You forgot these!
Why do you want to
Open that truck! Open that truck! I don't want those ugly lampshades around!
Leave her alone! Are you okay?
I see my mother as a victim of domestic violence and a victim of abuse, and I think that she was caught up in a vicious cycle that a lot of women who are in those same situations are caught up in, and that it's just very difficult for them to leave.
The only thing I've ever done is defended myself when she attacked me. And to some degree that involved my simply leaving the house for a day or so, and other times putting myself into the bedroom and closing the door, and just trying not to let her abuse me. But I've never abused her, never.
Our uniformed police officers had been called to their home on a number of occasions for a cause of domestic violence. And when they responded to the home, they found On occasion, Susan had some injuries that were questionable. There had been some drinking on both parties, and it was usually a very confused situation for the officer to determine exactly what had happened.
Susan eventually left Harrison. She rented a house and started her own business. Her family felt that she was finally getting herself back together. But Susan began seeing Harrison again, and by all accounts, the fighting continued.
I found out, she told me, that she had seen him a couple of times. And obviously that made me angry, made me feel sick to my stomach. All of a sudden, I saw the slippery slope, and I saw her sliding back into all the things that she'd worked so hard to get out of, and that worried me.
A few months later, Susan's other son gave her an ultimatum. He insisted that she stop seeing Jim Harrison.
I want this to end now. It's either Jim or us.
The next morning, Susan agreed to leave Harrison for good. But just 2 days later, Susan disappeared. When police questioned Harrison, he told them that Susan had visited him 3 times the previous day.
Mr. Harrison? Yes. I'm Officer Knott. This is Officer Rogers.
The third time, she arrived about 7, and she attacked me verbally, and it was very discouraging.
Harrison claims that Susan's mood turned uglier by the minute.
Susan, just calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down. I'm sick of calming down. Don't. And don't walk away from me.
Night.
Don't walk away from me. Talk to me.
Susan, you're being bad again.
I left the family room and went upstairs to my bedroom, and she followed me to the bottom of the steps, and she stayed there and yelled at me up the steps for a short period, and then left. Left the house and started her car and drove out.
3 weeks later, Susan's car was found at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., 50 miles from her home in Baltimore. Records show that the car entered the parking lot at around 6 a.m. on the day that Susan disappeared. The keys were in the ignition and the gas tank was full. Had Susan simply walked away from her life and her family?
Well, in any missing person investigation, we approach it in a several-pronged manner. Could they be missing on their own accord and that don't want to be found, or is there foul play? And we haven't uncovered any information that would lead credence to her trying to disappear in any fashion whatsoever.
A few months after Susan disappeared, Jim Harrison failed a polygraph. However, he claims that the test was flawed and continues to insist that he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance.
I love Susan, and I really do pray to God that she's alive and well. And I pray to God that you all can help find her, and please do your best to help find her.
There's no indications of what we may consider a stranger type of killer. So we feel that what happened to Susan was committed by someone close to her, that there had been some type of a dispute, and someone lost control, and circumstances took a tragic twist.
I have dreams of walking down the street with her, or just running into her somewhere, and all this time she's been gone, finally getting a chance to be with her again. And I know it's just a dream. I know that there's not a chance that she's ever going to come back, but I miss her so much, and I at least get to see her, in these dreams and get to be with her. But there's no doubt in my mind that she'll never ever be able to be with me again.
Update. 2 years after Susan Harrison disappeared, her skeletal remains were found by hikers in a remote area about 60 miles from her home. Dental records and 2 sapphire earrings confirmed her identity. The state medical examiner ruled that she had been murdered, probably on the day that she disappeared. A reward is being offered in this case, and if you have any information about the murder of Susan Harrison, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Next, the story of stolen Nazi treasure. Legend or a lost fortune worth more than $50 million? Germany, 1945. The final days of the Nazi Empire. The end of the war in Europe was near. As the Allies advanced into Germany, they discovered treasures that had been stolen by the Nazis. In the months following the German surrender, billions of dollars in riches were uncovered, including these gold bars, found in an abandoned salt mine by U.S. soldiers. But there could be even more.
Ever since the end of World War II, rumors of hidden Nazi treasure have captivated fortune hunters. One of the most persistent stories points to a lake in Austria called Lunarsee.
The man searching for this treasure is Dr. Edward Greger. After the war, he served with the U.S. Army in Austria and heard the story about a buried Nazi treasure.
It started at the concentration camp of Dachau. Gold and treasure that was accumulated from the prisoners that had brought in there who were executed and cremated.
Greger heard about the buried fortune from Dr. Wilhelm Gross, a medical doctor who treated in prison Nazi war criminals.
According to Dr. Gross, the commandant of Dachau and 3 of his assistants loaded the treasure into 4 boxes, which were probably ammunition boxes according to the size.
These boxes were filled with jewelry, rare stamps, and gold bars, processed from the gold fillings of concentration camp victims. Dr. Gross's informant claimed to be one of 4 SS officers who smuggled this treasure out of Dachau. Their destination was a pristine Austrian lake on the Swiss border called the Lunarsee. Allied armies had not yet reached this isolated region, and the men believed that their treasure would be safe. According to Dr. Gross, after several days, the men finally arrived at the Lunarsee. The officers buried the treasure exactly halfway between a small hut and a brook across the lake. They said their farewells and went their separate ways, planning one day to return.
3 of them left and headed into Switzerland. The 4th person went back down into the valley to return to his family.
According to Dr. Gross, this 4th officer was captured and, while awaiting execution, revealed his secret. The officer's 3 other companions were never seen again. In 1956, a dam was built on the Lunarsee that submerged the treasure location under 75 feet of water. 34 years later, a severe drought brought the lake level to an all-time low.
It's not getting any stronger.
Armed with information from Dr. Gross's personal papers, Edward Greger went to the Lunarsee.
It's already off the meter, though, so it's as strong as it can be.
He pinpointed the apparent location of the treasure by using a map given to him by Dr. Gross. However, after a careful search, Dr. Greger was unable to find it. Does the Lunarsee treasure really exist? Or did Dr. Gross simply make up the story? A war crimes trial in 1946 produced testimony suggesting the treasure is real.
I had discovered some evidence in the archives, specifically an interrogation statement from a gentleman by the name of Joseph Gerlin.
Joseph Gerlin was on trial for war crimes he committed at Dachau. According to his court testimony and statements from 4 other sources, the commandant of Dachau took part in a conspiracy to smuggle a treasure from inside the camp. Camp commandant was Wilhelm Weiter.
One witness said that he saw Weiter have the trucks loaded being loaded with valuables out of the cash storage areas. According to some other testimony, Viter was seen leaving the camp in those vehicles. Later on, he was also seen by other SS personnel heading towards the Swiss border. Geraldine testified that other camp personnel had assisted in burying this treasure, and that approximately $5 million in gold rice marks was taken in valuables.
Joseph Geraldine was hanged before revealing any more secrets about the treasure. Dr. Greger believes that Geraldine was one of the 4 men who buried the treasure at Lunar Zee, and perhaps he was Dr. Gross's mysterious informant. If the treasure is real, it remains hidden beneath the waters of Lunar Zee. In 2003, Dr. Greger returned to the Austrian lake, but was again unable to locate the hidden fortune. If he ever does find the treasure, he plans to use the proceeds to provide medical care for needy individuals. A fitting use for wealth stolen under such grim circumstances. Next, a teenage girl is murdered and police have the killer's voice on tape. Frederick, Maryland. Tracy Kirkpatrick was a quiet teenager from a small town. Her passion was writing poetry.
Her and her boyfriend had just recently broke up, and I guess she expressed her feelings through her writing. She wrote a lot of lonely poems. She's very intelligent. She's a hard worker, and she loved people, and she loved to be around people, and she loved to have a lot of friends and everything.
During Tracy's senior year in high school, she worked 2 part-time jobs, one of them as a sales clerk in a clothing store.
All over. Just got a new shipment in.
One night, Tracy was assigned to close the store and add up the day's receipts. 15 minutes before closing time, she was all alone. It was 8:45 p.m. 2 hours later, a security guard noticed that the lights were still on in the store. The front door was unlocked. When the guard called out, there was no response. He went in to investigate.
Almighty.
In a back storage room, he found Tracy's lifeless body. The guard immediately called police.
I'm at the clothing store. You better send someone down right away, all right?
At about that same time, Tracy's parents were on their way to pick her up. It was nearly 11 p.m., and she was more than an hour late.
As soon as I seen it was at the store, I jumped out of the car, and I went up to the door, and they didn't want to let us in at first because they really didn't know who we were.
I know Tracy works here. All right, hold on.
I said, "Is she all right? Can I see her?" And when he shook his head, no, I just blocked out everything. I didn't want to hear the rest of what was going to be said to me. What did someone have against her that they would do something like that to her? She never did anything to hurt anybody.
Detectives were baffled. They could find no motive for Tracy's murder. And then, 3 months later, they got their first break. A phone call recorded by a nationwide confession hotline.
Hello, my name is Don, and I'm calling from Frederick, Maryland. I know this is going to sound surprising, but 3 months ago, I stabbed a girl to death. And you might think that in making this tape, I'm setting myself up to be caught. But there are a lot of guys named Don in Frederick.
The confession hotline staff sent the tip to Frederick police.
The sincerity that I heard in that voice
And the knowledge that the person was displaying, talking about what he had done, at that point convinced me that I probably was listening to the killer.
Detective Horner played the tape for his chief.
Confession tape?
Yes, sir.
Let's listen to it then.
The girl I killed was working in a ladies' sportswear store. I often came by and talked to her when she was working alone. And one night when she was in the storeroom and we were talking, our conversation turned into an argument. And so I took out a knife that I have with me at all times and I killed her. And a few days later I realized that I had created a lot of sadness. And I thought about turning myself into the police. But whatever they do to me, that won't bring Tracy back. So I've decided that I better keep free because we have the death penalty in Maryland. Thanks for listening. I'm sorry about what I did, but nothing can change it. Bye.
Sure sounds like we have our killer, doesn't it?
Sounds very authentic. They traced the call back to a supermarket in Walkersville, Maryland, which is 7 or 8 miles just north of Frederick City. If it was the killer, he wanted to be caught, and he was seeking help through this hotline.
2 weeks later, Frederick police received another phone call. This time, it was from a woman named Martha Woodworth. She told the police that she was a psychic and had been contacted by a young man who identified himself only as Sean.
Hello, my name is Sean, and I have rather an unusual request.
Well, I don't usually take cases like that.
Woodworth told police that Sean had contacted her repeatedly. He was obsessed with finding the person who had murdered Tracy. She asked Sean for more information, and he eventually sent her some newspaper clippings about the crime.
When I received the envelope with his handwriting on the outside, I thought this person has a much stronger involvement than just being a friend who's interested. I found the handwriting extremely disturbed, so I felt it was my responsibility to alert the police that I had a potential suspect for them.
Chief Ashton played the confession tape for Martha to see if she could recognize the voice.
I knew it was Sean. In fact, my heart dropped. It was very chilling to hear the voice of the person I'd been speaking to for months actually confessing to the crime.
Police followed the return address on Sean's envelope to Walkersville, Maryland. It was the same town where the call-in confession had come from. The young man living at the address was not named Sean or Don, though he had sent the clippings.
Good morning. As requested by Frederick City Police,
Police still didn't have enough evidence to charge the young man from Walkersville. They asked a local DJ to broadcast the confession tape.
1 year ago today. Authorities encourage you to listen carefully. There's a chance someone may recognize the caller's voice.
Hello, my name is Don.
3 people called in to say they knew the voice. They all provided the identical name, a name that police recognized as the young man from Walkersville who had sent the newspaper clippings. Police searched his home for evidence the next day.
Unfortunately, the evidence was examined and re-examined, and we were unable to confirm that he was either at the crime scene that night or had any particular part in this criminal act.
Okay, I guess.
In the end, the young man pleaded the fifth and refused to answer any questions.
There has to be someone that's seeing something, someone coming from that store, running from that store, or leaving that store, or heard something.
And the frustrating part is that, we obviously know somebody killed her, and we've never been able to nail it down to the suspect that definitely did it. But I mean, has been our pledge to the community and to the family that, we're not going to give up until we do identify that person.
Update. The man who called himself Don or Sean has been cleared as a suspect. No one has ever been arrested for Tracy's murder, and the case remains open and unsolved. If you have any information, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Next, a man dies in a car crash and then comes back from the grave to comfort his grieving wife. The Cascade Mountain Range, Washington State. John and Patty Eccleston, along with their 2 young sons, Johnny and Chris, were packing up after a day of skiing. It was time to make the 70-mile drive back to their home near Seattle. Everything was calm, routine, normal. Then, disaster. The Eccleston's car skidded off the bridge and plunged into the river below, a free fall of more than 80 feet. It was pitch dark. The car rapidly filled with icy water. Patty Eccleston was badly injured and could have easily panicked. Instead, she was overcome with calm.
I had this feeling come through me and fill every pore, every cell of my being with warmth and love. It was pure love, and it was guidance. And that feeling gave me the knowledge and the strength to do what I needed to do next.
Patty managed to grab her children and get out of the wreck. Only later did Patty realize that her husband John had died immediately upon impact. But Patty believes that during that terrible crash, John's spirit inspired her to remain calm. After a brief stay in the hospital, Patty returned home and tried to stay strong. She says that when things seemed hardest, she again felt John's spirit. Initially, it was at night in the bedroom.
I was woken up from a sound sleep with the feeling that John had just been there. I could feel him, I could smell him, I could feel where he was in the bed. The only sensation I didn't have was visual. I did not see him. Every other part of it I felt and experienced. And it was not a dream. It was too real to be a dream.
Eventually, a Seattle physician named Melvin Morse heard about Patty's experience. Dr. Morse has documented hundreds of after-death visits and believes that they are not simply the product of overactive imaginations.
I feel that the fact that these experiences are emotionally dynamic, that they help to heal grief, and that people learn from them are a powerful piece of circumstantial evidence, and I grant that it's circumstantial, but a powerful piece of circumstantial evidence that that experience is at least as real as any other human experience.
For Patty, John's presence became more and more real, until one day, she did have a visual encounter.
I was sitting in my living room and had the lights on, and I was sitting on the couch reading a book. I just kind of glanced up, and John was there. I couldn't touch him, but I could see him. And he started communicating to me, and I say communicating because he was not talking with his lips.
I think Johnny's beginning to feel better.
I think so too.
But it was a conversation. It was a two-way conversation. He was talking to me, I was talking to him.
I don't know if I can do this alone.
I'm here to tell you that you can. There's a reason you survived. Remember to trust, and you'll always know what to do.
Thank you.
Patty says that John's visits continued for nearly a year.
Looking back, I know it was, he didn't come anymore after I had gotten my life together. I was okay. I was truly okay. Things were still rough. I was still hurting, but I had gained enough strength, personal strength, that I could go on without him, and he wasn't there anymore.
Prior to my research, these experiences have been thought to simply be grief-induced hallucinations, passive fantasies of the mind struggling to deal with a terrible loss. The difference is that I'm saying that death-related visions and post-death visitations are real. They're emotionally dynamic. We can learn things from them. That they're actually an interaction between the person who has died and the person who is seeing the vision.
Dr. Barry Beierstein disagrees.
I believe these people are telling us some very interesting things. I think they're telling us honest recollections of what it seemed like to them. And so I'm interested in their experiences. Now, I don't interpret them probably the way they do. I think these are things that seemed incredibly real to them, but probably didn't exist in reality outside the theater of their own minds.
I don't want to be perceived as a nutcase, but it is important. It's very important for people out there to hear this story if it helps one person. And I'll share this story, and I'll continue to share it for whoever ever needs to hear it.
Is there any way to explain what happened between John Eccleston and the wife that he left behind? Can the dead return? Or are after-death visits simply the echo of a strong earthly love? Perhaps until we receive such a visit ourselves, we can't really say. Several other cases in this program have yet to be solved. If you have any information about them, please log on to our website at unsolved.com.